so next up, we have a fireside chat on family office tech investments. And I'm joined by David Gamming, founder and managing director at Grammig Advisory. We have Mahesh Harila, CEO and chairman of M. Harila Global Investments Limited and Asia CBD Limited, and Yuen Wong, CEO, founder of Labs Group and managing partner of Bitmart. Thanks so much, guys.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there, good morning from Zurich. Good morning to Hong Kong and to the rest of the world. Real pleasure to have you on the line today and to be leading you and the audience through this fireside chat. So first of all, thanks a lot for joining. I think we're 10 minutes behind, but I'm sure everybody will forgive us. The previous chats were quite interesting. So as the introduction said, I have the honor to moderate a fireside chat today on the topic of family offices in tech investments. And joining me here today are two gentlemen who work closely together, as one is a family office investor in the other one's tech firm. So Mahesh Harilela, CEO and chairman of a very prominent and well-known third-generation Hong Kong-based family office that has strong roots in the property and real estate market. And as we can see with many next-generation family business leaders, Mahesh decided to venture off a little bit the trodden path and bring home technology to complement the family's traditional business. He focuses on business activities that have an underlying environmental and social sustainability focus and sometimes need a little guidance and governance in this respect. I personally admire it when people admit their shortcomings, and during our preparation, Mahesh said to me, and I quote, "I'm not a tech genius, so always require a good tech team to help me understand the new language of blockchain." So very exciting to see that, you know, people who don't consider themselves absolute experts and geeks in a specific technology field still appreciate what's underlying, what's behind it, and want to participate in it. On the other hand, we have Joanne Wong. He's the CEO and founder of Labs Group in Hong Kong. And Labs, an abbreviation standing for liquefying asset-backed securities. So basically explains pretty much what it is that the company does. It's an end-to-end real estate digitization ecosystem with security token issuance and a securities exchange marketplace to drive more investment and higher liquidity for investors and real estate developers. Joanne is also a partner at Silverback Capital, board member at NSAV Holdings, and a managing partner at Bitmart. So once again, thanks a lot for joining us. I would encourage the audience to submit questions whenever there are some. I will collect them and then read them out towards the end, perhaps, to not interrupt the flow. So Mahesh, let me start with you. In my intro, I mentioned that you followed your own path business-wise and that technology played a big and important role for you. Was that never or not always the case with your family business and family office?
First of all, David, thank you very much for having me on board. It's a pleasure to be here, to be able to share my grooming, I suppose, in the arena of playing in the big business world. I've always, to answer your question, I think I've always been an early adopter ever since birth. So in travels that I was able to go with my parents, it was always looking at what was new and what was different. And for me, being based in Hong Kong, Japan was a great eye-opener of a country in terms of technology. And after finishing university in the US, my first business venture was to be involved with the Japanese because I was just in love with the food and in love with tech. So that as an early adopter, tried to understand really the telecoms business, what was happening, what was evolving, and put myself into consumer electronics. building company in Japan and developing that from Japan in consumer electronics, it allowed me to really understand what was needed in terms of consumer product. And being an early adopter, we built digital electronic cameras, and we started to build that and sell it to 30 countries around the world. But business is interesting. There are products and businesses which are high margin, low margin. But the point being is that building a company from scratch actually allows you to understand all the various elements of the business. It's very unlike the corporate world where you start from the bottom and you're sitting in a cocoon of an activity until you actually have the opportunity to expand to different departments and different divisions to get a holistic picture. So coming in from ground up, putting money into your own business, taking your own money, putting it to it, allows you to understand the value chain and the value propositions as well. Because if you don't put your skin in the game, there is no game that you're trying to develop. So fortunately, through those experiences, I went into a sustainable practice of trying to import bottled water. And a lot of people who said bottled water, you're shipping it all the way from the US, from Hawaii, which was a sustainable source. There's a lot of carbon offset, a lot of carbon problems that you're creating by putting on a boat and burning oil. With that, the other side of the coin was how I could recycle the plastic and what I could do with that plastic. So we decided, my team and I decided that every plastic bottle we sold, we would buy that equivalent weight in recycled PET. And with that, we converted into fabric and made aprons and sold to a couple of coffee chains around the world. Now, when we looked at tech, there was really no tech that we could actually use or to source with because Alibaba wasn't there at that time when I started all this business. So we had knocked on doors and we looked at ways on how to find the right partnerships for right events. And all of a sudden, the tech boom. You got the huge tech boom that came in, the sourcing capability, and then our mobile phones became our life source of information. And with that, just being able to source or to look at information from your mobile phone, how can we actually interact to create a trade or environment and one that you could actually trust and work with? So I got involved in understanding blockchain. Someone came to me from the US and said, invest in blockchain. I said, sure, what's it have to do with solar panels? And, thinking that you could actually tie a chain of blocks together and they'll create energy. But actually, I was completely wrong. I got involved on that stage in 2016 to understand what was Bitcoin, what was blockchain. And I fell in love with the concept of blockchain, not to trade of cryptocurrency, but in terms of what blockchain could represent in terms of a global information reliability source that we could own and manage on our own. So I ventured into consultancy for a company, and I learned a little bit more about going into Malta and going into the European market, understanding about information about listing, exchanges. And I came across and met with Yuen. And Yuen at Bitmart, and he introduced me to a concept and how we could actually look at a business of property transactions. Now, my family, if I just digress a little bit, my family is traditionally in the property business. And within the property sector, we're in the hotel sector, in hotel businesses. So we've branched into owning about 19 hotels across Asia, the US, and in UK. With that, the tradition of the business is a property that was being managed by the number of people that would sit at be entertained or stay at the hotels, and that became our revenue model. And I looked at that and I said, what's the sustainability and how is that going to work? And of course, technology was part of it in terms of the reservation systems. How could we integrate reservations and payments together became then a payment gateway issue, right? So Yuen came to me and said, look, what if we actually look at property and say that we could break up a property and put that onto a blockchain and allow for fractional ownership? And that's where the birth of labs came in. And I said, I'm in. I'm getting involved in this. I'm going to put my time and energy to bridge what is, I think, a very liquid, or was a liquid activity, and bring it more to the masses to be able to participate in ownership and ownership of the properties, but also ownership of of the data and the information that you, not the banks or not your mortgage lenders or your money lenders or corporations, would control, but you yourself could control and be able to trade whenever you wanted in any jurisdiction without restriction, right? And that's where my business, my activity in labs and blockchain came to be.
Now, let me build up on my previous question. Because I work a lot with family offices, and my job is basically to connect them. And what we see is often the generational gap. What I want to understand, was it a struggle for you to get the family on board? Perhaps the previous generation to say, hey, we put, we tokenize our hotels, right? We break them up and we put them into blockchain. This step towards technology, towards moving away from the traditional way of doing the hotel business to making the hotel business sort of a tech business. Was that immediately, taken up by the family and they said, hey,
no,
great thing to do, or was it a lot of work for you?
Let me just share with you, it's still a lot of work.
Okay.
So we haven't reached that stage of being able to say that the family is fully on board. One of the very, I'm not sure if you know that we are a very large family. We're over 100 members in the family, consisting of 6 family units that have offspring. And for me, looking and venturing, one, into family office, number 2, in the technology side of investments, we always have to get involved with our own personal engagement first. And once we prove ourselves in being able to manage and develop that return in whatever measurement that we decide, then the family comes on board. But in this case, as technology is evolving so quickly and blockchain itself is proving its validity so quickly, the family is on board with crypto assets. Now, the question is, how do we able to convert our or partially convert some of our hotel products into allowing parts of it, or in whole, sit on the blockchain, allow that to exist. And that's something that we're working with Yuen on, how we can actually create the system that would create the comfort in the traditional sense of what is a business investment. So there are a lot of parallels in how a hotel may operate. And I give you an example. Timeshare could be one of the examples that some hotel operators offer. There are dining memberships that you prepay to the hotel to be able to enjoy dining discounts as well as free stays a number of nights in a year. Now, how do we actually convert that into a tokenized activity? And how do we make sure that in that tokenized activity, it actually looks at and can be an investment prospect? So one, it brings liquidity to the holding company, very fast, very quick. And number 2, what creates value for the participants who get involved in this type of investment or purchase, whether it's utility or an investment structure. So, the differences of owning a hotel and selling a room is very simply managed in terms of the rules and regulations that exist in terms of hotel associations and management and the government taxation and whatever rules that govern each territory. Now, putting that onto blockchain, we then cross over into territorial engagements, and we're working with different partners on how we can, manage those risks as well as ensure those returns are sustained as well as respected and custodialized. So with this, it's a work in progress with Labs, and Labs has a tremendous tech team with the technology and compliance requirements that sit behind it, that I felt that was the right platform for us to actually start engaging in digitalizing and tokenizing the property aspect. And with this, it just gives us confidence that in the next stage, the family can come on board with some of our assets.
So what I see often, and if we go into, let's say, the traditional conference space that is not taking place the way it is at the moment, it's virtual. But imagine, the typical family office conference or the tech conference. where people actually meet in person, there is a segregation. There's a segregation between old money, multi-generational, families, often, you know, deriving from an industrial background. We always call them, you know, old man in gray suits, right? This is who you've got there. And then you've got the sort of turtleneck wearing startup tech geek, right? Meeting
and the hybrids.
Stylish
hybrids.
So there's a proper segregation, and I sometimes feel that both don't really know how to approach each other. And how to find together. While, you know, the family business, the traditional family business, hey, we've done this for 150 years and we stick to what we know. They don't sometimes see the value of, you know, technology, of bringing technology on board just to optimize their process. And then on the other hand, the tech guys, they don't really know how to speak to the old money and how to make themselves appealing to them. So from your perspective, as a family office, as a large one, as you said yourself, with over 100 members, as a family office in the third generation or fourth, perhaps maybe even with the offspring, how would you like to be, and somebody who's got an open tech mind, right? How do you want to be approached by startups, by tech entrepreneurs to foster collaboration?
Well, that's the billion-dollar question. I think I've sat at multiple conferences and I've fallen in love with every gambit of technology that's coming up. The question to me, and I think to most traditional family members, is the sustainability aspect, right? And in Hong Kong, we are a very close-knit society. It's a very close-knit environment. Everybody practically knows everybody. So in terms of sustainability, we want to know that if there's a business proposition that comes in, where would it sit 20 years from now or 10 years from now or 30 years from now? And if we're looking at the get rich quick thing, then you know, it's not really something we look at or the families would look at, because it's not about getting rich quick. We have wealth, that there is wealth already in place, and there are mechanisms that we secure that wealth. The question is, how do we see the business environment evolving or taking change to adopt and to accept the new technologies? If we looked at the boom of the internet and we said music sharing in its initial days of peer-to-peer activities, how could you monetize that? How could you run it? And it just became a different platform that there's no way that we could have caught on to that because we're too slow. But if we look at what's happening in blockchain, we do have assets. Everybody has their assets. I mean, if we look at what Beatles has done with his digital art in getting $69 million from a digital art, creating the NFT on that as well, and that value. I think these are tools that are becoming more readily available for us to understand where the ownership lies, how it's going to reside, and how it's going to create a sustainable return. Now, sustainable return, the multiple measurements. If you look at environmental, social sustainability, you look at governance, you look at return on investment, you look at what is the welfare development for the family and the family unit. How is that going to ensure that we start? Do we look at low risk, middle risk, high risk environments? How much of our portfolio can we actually participate in certain type of investments and investment structures? Are there different tangents? Do we know anything? Do we know agriculture, for example, when we're property play? Do we know about space? If we wanted to talk to Elon Musk about getting involved with SpaceX, did we want to participate in the early days where it was high risk, or do we want to jump in right now where it's been proven that the technology is working and it's able to move forward? So all the variables that come into play, it's very hard when you have such a large family to be able to synchronize what those activities could be. So deal flow coming in, I fall in love with it as an early adopter. But where does it apply to the family? Changes and morphs into then understanding the sustainability and long-term effect of that technology. And so far we're not really able to see that far. Now, only one of the things, and I'm sorry for taking up so much time, one of the things that I've talked to other family offices in Hong Kong is the risk appetite. And risk appetite here with traditional families is very, very low. What we consider as risk would be playing on the stock market, buying equity that's easily liquidable. So I'm not sure where families would actually look at assets and take a risk where they're committed for 3 to 5 years before they can exit, or take a risk which they can liquidate if should it not provide return. So pre-listing, fantastic. Everybody loves that, right? If you go into a B stage, you reduce the number of people involved. A Series A, less and less money involved. And you go into seeding, okay. As long as it's not over a certain ticket price, maybe we'll put in a couple of $1 million and spread that to 10 or 20 different companies. And we see where that stands. So it's hard in Hong Kong, in this environment, that multiple family or family offices really look at risk without understanding the sustainability aspect and risk appetite.
Okay.
I hope that answers.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Jen, we're not ignoring you. Happy to get you involved now. I gave only a very brief introduction to Labs before. Can you please tell us a little more about the vision that you're actually following? I mean, Mahesh already explained to a certain degree how you work together, the tokenization of the hotel property, but Labs' vision, what is it that you follow and that you would want to get across to the audience today as well?
Yep, guys, thanks for having me. Yep, so Labs, basically like what you said, right, is all about liquefying asset-backed securities. So basically we started in 2018. So we look at the industry and what blockchain can change this industry. So we look at the 3 pain points, right? All of us know that, property investment, the biggest challenge on this sector is always the lack of liquidity, right? And also the high barrier to entry, and also the very high transactional costs. And also it's very hard to manage cross-border property investment. So because I come from a blockchain background, so we look at this and think that, okay, this is something that blockchain can really disrupt. Yep. So by making them into small slices, we could allow people in other parts of the world to invest property in this part of the world easily, and also reduce the cost, reduce the parcel size, and also encourage our liquidity. So, and we know that we have a game changer when we realize that through a couple of years of hard working and talking to the government, we got the approval to list digitized real estate on an exchange, and yet allow us to target retail investors. That means they could invest in property in any part of the world just by investing like a small amount, such as 100 USD. And so we know we have a game changer here. Of course, with the advancement on decentralized finance and all this, and NFT, we believe that there's a lot of things we can do, to better the sector. Yeah. And when we first started, it was crazy, yeah, because when we started in 2018, we bring forth the idea to, people, including family officers, PE guys and all this. We tell them about, we told them about blockchain, Bitcoin, digital currency. And they started to look at us, with a blank look, yeah. And even I think some of them think that we are scammers, talking about, things are really very vague, very distant, very iffy to them. Yeah. So, but we kept going, and we were lucky to, finally meet someone from the a traditional family, and yet that person is open enough to talk to us, on what blockchain can do to property investments, which is Mahesh, Harilela, yeah. So we were lucky. We talked to him, and he kind of like identified with our idea, initially. And then when we explain more, he could see the beauty of it. And so fast forward to now, we know that still the challenges remain, how to bridge the traditional world with a digitized world. So we came up with a very good business model, it's very hybrid. We got the centralized part, which is the exchange, because our exchange will be a regulated one. We got the decentralized part, which is the the token swapping and all this. Yep. So we know that we have to make the best out of both worlds. Okay. And then still, when we started our project, we knew that it's very hard to convince the very traditional minds. And that's why we never, when we started our fundraising, we never even really spent a lot of time on speaking to the traditional, rich in Hong Kong, despite that we are in Hong Kong. So instead we went to the new rich in the blockchain world, and then we complete our fundraise within 2 weeks. And right now, it's just amazing. Yeah, all our initial investors all got more than 1,000% returns within a couple of months. Yep. And now we are one of the top 500 blockchain projects out there. Yeah. And yeah, we are lucky, and we are at the best timing, obviously. Yeah.
It's very interesting what you said, that you went out for your fundraising to the newly tech rich, right? And they funded when it was done within 2 weeks. And I mean, this, that exemplifies perfectly the point that I made before: the segregation between old money and new technology. How the understanding is perhaps sometimes lacking. And the old money, they could get these returns. They could not only just make these returns, but they could incorporate the technology into their existing traditional business, and generate a win-win situation for their family office. But it seems so hard to get to them, to get hold of them, and to get them to listen.
Yeah.
A question that I would have, we discussed the investment democratization of labs, right? How important was that to you and to labs from the beginning? Was that a driving force, or was that sort of a byproduct of developing labs?
Yeah. So like what I always told people, right? Labs team is firstly blockchain, people, then real estate, then finance, then legal. Yep. So we embrace all things blockchain, including the spirit. So blockchain is all about collaboration, openness, transparency, and get everyone involved. Yeah. So, and that's why we started this project, because I don't know whether this is the right kind of scenario to talk about this, but I think because we are talking to the family officers, right? But we really want to make this world a fairer place. Yeah, we want to let the everyday people be able to engage in real estate investments. Yeah, so this is also always one of the challenges, and that's why when we bring forth the idea, to the government, and they said, can this, the thing that you're working on, can this encourage financial inclusion? We said, obviously, and that's what we want to do. Yeah, because now with a very small amounts of investment, and with just a digital wallet and internet connection, you can invest in any property across the world. So we believe that this is bridging, and make it a fairer world. Yeah.
So I want to play devil's advocate, okay? And I represent a family office that's maybe a little more traditional, and they say, well, what you do is nice, but a REIT, or an REIT, real estate investment, is basically the same. What would you respond to that? What would you say? Why work, with a tokenized version as opposed to the REIT? What advantages do you bring?
Yeah. So we look at REITs, right? So instead, I want to pose a lot of questions. REITs, can you sell to all everyday people? Do REITs still have a lot of restrictions on who can invest and who cannot? And REITs, can you? There's a lot of restriction on REITs as well. Like the Hong Kong, you got the what they call it, the link and all this. They can only invest in certain industries, right? Like the commercial property and all this. And REITs, that's a very high cost because I don't know other parts of the world, but in Hong Kong, it's expensive to set it up. Like you have to be a public company, in order to be a REIT. And there's a high, because of the high setup cost, there's a high entry cost and high exit cost, right? And also, it's very hard to invest in REITs in a cross-borderly manner. Yeah, but with digitization, this can be solved here. So in a way, you can look at the labs ecosystem as a supercharged REITs, and yet it's better. For example, I'm not too sure whether you guys are very familiar with the DeFi world. So for example, if someone invests in a certain property within the labs ecosystem, right, with those tokens, they can actually put on the DeFi platform, a collateralized lending platform, and you can stick there, and someone could borrow, could lend, and use your stake tokens as a collateral, and allow the end investors to be able, to reinvest and hence to obtain the leveraging. Yeah, and just imagine you don't have to go to the bank, you don't have to fill in piles of papers, and you don't have to queue up and wait for months. Yeah, and this is what we are hoping to achieve. A very transparent, instant, open world for everyday people. Yeah.
Okay, so crossing the line and sort of being fluid between prop tech, property world, fintech, an investment opportunity, bringing this together, and yet owning at least part of something that is real, right? That is out there, because this is for many also the problem with cryptocurrencies, for example, that they say it's not backed by anything, it's very evasive. Whereas, if I invest with you, then I, at least, even if it's not the entire hotel, but perhaps with the small investment that I made as the average Joe, at least I earn a room in this hotel, and if you break it down, so what is yours, where your investment is. Mahesh, you told me earlier when we prepared that your family office is, obviously you're Asia based, but that your investment focus lies in Asia as well. Now, you said, however, that your hotel properties are in Asia, in the UK, in the USA. Are opportunities like labs outside of Asia, the US, Europe perhaps, would they be of interest to you as well? Or do you say, hey, Asia has a competitive advantage that we see, they outperform and they outsmart the rest of the world, we're not even looking at them?
No, I would never say that. I think the world is full of intellectual and savvy investors. So being brought up and raised in Asia, of course, my playground has always been Asia focused, but the family has branched UK and US. And, I went to university in the US and I always loved that place. It has a special place for me. I just look at, value of land and opportunities. And if I look at opportunities that exist, a landscape like Hong Kong, where we can only occupy 40% of the land, is a tremendous market where the government controls availability, and therefore land prices can go up and have been going up, and they do go up significantly. Cost of borrowing being cheap, it just makes things very easy in Hong Kong. But finding the land, it's difficult, and paying the premiums. I like places that are developing. If you look at Thailand, it's trying to mature. If you look at Singapore, there's a big bridge to the rest of Asia in how Singapore has matured to become one of the biggest, fastest leading countries for fintech as well, with DBS Bank onboarding cryptocurrency availability of crypto trade as well. I think is a big signal to the world that Asia is the stomping ground. It is the place to come in There's a lot of value. There's a lot of high net worth that exists in this area. May not be as old wealth as Europe and in some cases America, but there is a lot of liquidity in this area. Now, we're also on the back door to China. And I look at the wealth that's being propagated in China. And politics aside, I think there's a huge scope of growth in a country that is showing continuous GDP development. There are hot spots and there are places which are expanding. So I think China is also a great area. But I also know there's a lot of Chinese investments that have gone offshore. And wouldn't managing or helping them in their assets that are offshore by tokenizing those assets could be a value that we can provide to them as well. Now, who's to say that we can't do this for anybody in the world, whether it's New York or London or whether it's Berlin or in Paris? Who's to say that it's restricted? It's just restricted by how the compliance, the government compliance requirements are embedded in the system. But if we could create a cross-border link with Africa and Europe and with Asia, why not? So we're always happy to look at whatever venture that comes in, as long as it's can provide a return, liquidity to the asset owners and return appetite for the people who want to invest in those properties. And I think those are really business decisions that an investor would have to make. But to onboard with us, having an adequate size portfolio is someone with an adequate size portfolio would find this very, very beneficial. And if there's people who have non-performing assets, it could be something that could provide liquidity on the short-term crunch that they may face as well.
So property speculation has made a lot of people very wealthy.
Sure.
all around the world, and this is fair enough. But it created also bubbles that sometimes burst, and it created inflated rents, for normal people. Do you think that the tokenization of property will be able to put an end to this exaggerated speculation and sort of lead to a normalization of housing prices, or might it not even, lead to the other extreme? If we look at GameStop, where small investors suddenly they bundle their forces and they cause billions of losses to the hedge funds, So what could happen? What's your outlook?
I'll tell you what. If I speak on behalf of Yuen, is that it's not trying to put in a collective of assets. It's singular in its onboarding activity. So if it's a collective assets, we're not putting bad property, grouping it into good property. We're not creating CDOs like in the old bust of 2008. And that's going to try to drive artificial growth in markets that don't deserve it, like Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And we're not looking for that whole rush and onslaught of trade into a property market, which people are trying to look for get rich quick. I think there are two sides of it. One is liquidity to assets which are fully funded but not being occupied, or if there's a need for liquidity on an asset that's performing and they want to share some of those returns. You don't have to sell the building. You don't have to send the land title. You don't have to sell the deed. You can sell a portion of the asset in whatever structure, whether it's shares or whether it's an NFT, how you want to perform. It allows for liquidity of something, right? And it can be pulled in the return, the revenues that generate in that building. The other side of it, it allows for small ticket players to come in and start learning. So if we look at countries like the US, where majority of the population is mired in debt, and that debt is mortgage driven, it's credit card driven, it's consumptionomic driven, just to be able to look and feel wealthy, but you're stuck paying off debt in its entirety. Could you look at investing in a property if you're based in LA and LA is not performing, but why not buy an asset in London where it could be performing, and you just buy a fraction of that? So it allows you to actually trade on a cross border without going through any of the difficulties of understanding the regulation requirements and movement of your foreign exchange. So with this, I think this creates a platform to allow people to understand that property is a trade. It is a real value asset. It is a basic rights that we should acquire to achieve, right? but it allows for an entry level. It allows for small parcel activity, and we like to look at how we can bridge that gap and allow you to own it through blockchain.
So I know I said at the beginning that social and environmental issues, sustainability are important for you when you make your investment decision. Do you think, and Joan, you can answer this question as well, do you think that labs will be able to provide or help provide more affordable housing, for example? Will it be able to take off the pressure of the real estate housing market wherever it's applied?
Yeah, I think like what I said, when we discussed with the government agency on the exchange license, and like what I said, right, they actually asked the question, can you encourage financial inclusion? Because only then we realized that many people in this world don't even have a bank account. Yeah, and that means they are being excluded from a lot of good investment chances and all this, and they could not let their money grow. So that's the problem here, because just imagine they don't even have a bank account. How can they perform certain investments, right? And nowadays the banks are getting very difficult, on people opening bank accounts as well. Not only for the disadvantage, even now, even for the common people. For example, in Hong Kong, just imagine if you come from overseas and try to tell them that you want to set up a business account with them. Just imagine the hassle and challenges that you will go through. Yeah. If you don't believe me, come here and the banks will show you. Yeah. So yeah. So I think we are living in a crazy world right now. Yeah. So with the blockchain, at least, like what I said, with internet account, internet access, a digital wallet, and then you can get involved in at least more choices, more fairness, better chances of wealth distribution. Yeah, that's all I can say. Thanks.
I would have a dozen more questions, but I was told that we have run out of time. Tatiana sent me a kind chat message here. So we have to wrap up, unfortunately. There is so much more to ask and to learn about this topic, which is certainly very, very interesting. I'm sure if the audience has questions, reach out to Tatiana or whoever invited you to this platform. I'm sure they will kindly forward it to Jan or to Mahesh and facilitate a discussion between you. That leaves me only with a big thank you for your time, for joining us here today, and for the opportunity also to get the chance to interview you and lead this discussion. It was a real pleasure, and I hope to continue offline.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Yeah, and I apologize for having to finish off this panel. I feel like it was very engaging to myself and the audience, and hopefully we can do it sometime again soon. So thanks, Mahesh, thanks, David, and thanks, Yuen.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you, see you guys. Bye.